If you are watching this video, then that means you are in the middle of fighting a ranked play or fighting one of your homies and they hit you with something like this. You saw that? I just pulled off a 37 hit combo and I'm not even in sparking mode. Isn't that amazing? Wouldn't you love to do this? What is up, guys? It is Mikey here, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to do beginner combos all the way to advanced combos in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. So, without wasting too much time, let's dive right into the video. You're done. So I'm going to mention off the bat, my button binds may be different because it is a mixture of standard and classic, and I did flip them around to suit my liking. Now, although that I am mentioning this, I do want to say this shouldn't make a huge difference considering the fact that standard and classic controls on both controllers are the same. Meaning Xbox attacks with X and Y, while PlayStation's attacks with square and triangle. In worst case scenario, just like my defensive guide, I will have my controller on the bottom left side of the screen, that way you guys can follow along. Now, with that out of the way, we're going to start here with the beginner combos, and you're going to need to know each and every one of these so that we can move on to intermediate combos. Which, by the way, a very useful tip if you're starting out, you could go and visit Gohan and Piccolo and they will show you how to do the rush chain attacks, because you are going to need to master these 4 in order to move on to the next step. And I know 4 different types of combo attacks sounds like a lot, but it's actually not really as complicated as you think. Pretty much your main strike button, whether that's X or square depending on which controller you are using, you mix it up by tapping it once and then going to Y or triangle, and basically you get a set view of different things that can happen. So for me, hitting X once and then Y will have me sending flying kicks in the opponent's face, while hitting X twice and then Y once will have me use a ki blast to push my enemy away. Then finally hitting X 4 times then Y once will have me punch the enemy straight in the stomach so that way they get stunned. Now, the weird thing about Trunks with a sword is that if I do X 3 times and then Y once, it still does the same type of stun as if you hit it 4 times. But most of the characters in the game will have a total of 4 different types of rush chain attacks to work with. Now, it is very important that you guys remember to know your character. So coming in the training room and knowing what their moveset does is very important. Because, for example, what I didn't know is that when I use Trunks, it takes 1 X and 1 Y to do a flying kick. But if I switch over to Android 17, it takes 2 X's and 1 Y to do a flying kick. Which essentially means that there's different inputs to get different types of results for Android 17 as opposed to Trunks. There's another thing that I noticed as well is that Trunks does not turn his opponent around, but Android 17 does do that. And I know right now it seems like a lot, but as long as you go in the training room and you start with X, Y, and then going in order from there, you will get a lot of damage in and a lot of hits in. And if you are just starting out, this is the simplest way to go about it, because in due time you will remember how to do these combos and then you can mix them up however you like. It is also very important for you guys to know that when doing a combo chain, if you hit the same combo twice, it will send your opponent flying away from you, ultimately breaking your combo that you have going on. So for example, a common one that can happen is that somebody will mash X 4 times and hit Y and then do it again, and it will look something like this. Which obviously this is not really what you want, because you want to get more hits in so that way you have more damage and you are above your enemy as far as damage output. So that is why I showed you the rush chain attacks in order, because if you hit all 4 of them, you will ultimately deal more damage and then you'll do something like this instead. Now, another very important technique that you need to know in order to pull off combos is how to step in. Now, a step in should look something like this, and it should be X or A depending on if you're on Xbox or PlayStation. Which also reminds me of something important that I need to tell you guys while you're doing your combos. Do not be touching your left analog stick or your movement analog stick while you're doing button inputs. And the reason for that is because it can actually interfere with the combo all in all and actually mess you up and do a different move. Basically inputting something that you did not mean to input. And I know it's gonna feel weird at first, because it did for me when I was learning how to do combos, to not hold my left analog stick while doing combos. But hear me out, once you adapt and that muscle memory becomes more apparent, then you will see what I'm talking about when you flow much easier with combos, and you will thank me later. Now, once you're able to step in efficiently, you can actually pair this up with a 5 normal attack. Basically that'd be X or squared depending on if you're on PlayStation or Xbox. You get the gist of it. Now, when you mix in the step in with the 5 normal attacks, it should look like this. This is the only universal combo between all characters that will work a consecutive amount of times without knocking your opponent away. Now, once you have all that mastered, we're going to be moving on to the intermediate difficulty part of this video. This is where we take what we learned in the beginner section of this video and start putting opponents in a blender in the intermediate part. Now, you want to go back to Gohan's training with Piccolo because here you're going to want to know how to do lift strikes and grand slashes. Grand slashes will ultimately be another option for you to break your opponent's high guard. Basically, drop kicking them so you can extend your combo, while lift strikes will do the exact same thing. These are two techniques that you need to add to your arsenal, as it will make you more lethal when you are dealing long duration combos. Now, once you learn grand slashes, you can actually do some pretty cool stuff like the tornado slash. Basically, what you gotta do is hit X and then Y and down on the analog stick to trip your opponent, then hit Y, Y, X, and then you will basically do a tornado slash. When the tornado slash is done correctly, it should look like this. Now, the reason why the tornado slash is one of my favorite moves is because it's basically almost impossible to evade out of. Your opponent's gonna have to have some serious reaction time to get out of this. So in my opinion, this is one of those moves that will give you free hits on any type of opponent. Now, if you want to get fancy with it, we can mix what we learned in the beginner section of this video plus the tornado slash, and you get something absolutely beautiful. So basically, what you can do is you can hit your opponent 5 times with the X and then do it again, but on the 3rd time, you want to hit X and then Y plus down to drop your opponent, then Y, Y, X again, and then you'll finish off with a beautiful tornado slash. Just a reminder to dash in between combos so that way you don't lose your opponent. When done correctly, it should look like this. Now, if you want to take it a step further, you could do the X times 5 2 times and add a rush chain attack to it as well. But just to remind you, every character is different. That's why it's very important that you come into training once again, so that way you understand which characters can do what. But for this example, my character is going to flip the opponent around twice, and I'm going to put it into a tornado slash. Now, the input should look like this: X times 5 dash, X times 5 again dash, then X, 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 Y dash, then finish it off with a quadruple X down plus Y, 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 X, and then you'll get that nice tornado slash. Now, this one is a little bit harder, but as long as you follow the beginner steps, I'm sure you can pull this off. When done correctly, it should look like this. Now, a really cool thing that I was trying to explain before is that you can add a rush chain attack anywhere in between the combo to give you a different effect. Now, I know I've said it multiple times in this video, but it's definitely character dependent on which type of rush attack they do. Whether the character you're playing as gives them some flying high kicks, maybe stuns them by punching them in the gut, or pushes them away, or even just turns them around. That's what's pretty cool about this game, is that you can actually mash up a whole bunch of different combos by just placing your rush attack somewhere else. Now, the reason why you want to mix up rush chain attacks inside of your combos is because it will leave them stunned and harder to actually counter you. As I was mentioning before, you could turn your opponent around and give them back shots, or you could stun them by hitting them in the gut. These are both two examples of things that make it very hard to get out of your combo, because they would have to evade at the right time, Z counter at the right time, or best case scenario for you, use a revenge counter to get out of your combo string, which in the good scenario for you will leave them with 2 less skill points than what they had, basically putting them on the back burner and giving you the upper hand. So obviously it's going to take some time to get used to, but a cool way that I learned how to actually include my rush chain combos is that whenever I'm doing a rush chain combo, in between each one I try to hit a 5 basic X attack, and then the one after that I try to hit another rush chain combo. And doing this kind of helped me memorize the inputs, so that way I would stop button mashing and freaking out when in the middle of a combo chain. Now, this is what I did to remember, and this really helped me out a lot. And depending on which character you're using, it should look similar, or it should look like this. Now, once you got that down, if you've had your fun with the grand slashes, it's now time to move up to the lift strikes. No pun intended. Now, much like the grand slash where you hit X and then you do down plus Y, on the lift strike, you hit X and do up plus Y, which is just a slight little tweak. I am going to be showing you multiple combos that you could be utilizing with the lift strike. Then after that, we're going to take everything we learned from the beginners part of this guide and the intermediate part of this guide, and then we're going to move on to the advanced part of this guide, which is for those of you who are combo enthusiasts. Now, the very important important part that you're going to need to know is how to dash up towards your opponent after performing a lift strike. Thankfully, by keeping it simple at first, it will be easy to remember. So all you gotta do is hit X and then Y and up at the same time, and then it will perform a lift strike. Then all you have to do is hit A and dash, and then your character will go up towards your opponent who is currently flying through midair, and then basically you're at free will to continue your combo. When the dash is done correctly, it should look like this. Now, much like the rush chain attacks, the lift strike actually has different combos depending on which character you are using. And what I mean by this is when you lift strike your opponent, depending on what character you are using, the combo set may change. Some characters like to dash up during a lift strike, while others like to teleport during a lift strike. Some characters like stunning their opponent after hitting a lift strike. Some may like hitting them with a series of attacks. And once again, I cannot stress this enough that this game has very similar button inputs, but the game really changes depending on what character you play. So utilizing the training arena before playing ranked play is a must so that we can utilize the full potential out of your characters. And if you are ever unsure, you can go to the explanation of controls whenever you are on a new character or trying to learn a character. And here under rush chain attacks will give you a little bit of an insight of what kind of combos they do. I'm always browsing through here when I'm trying out a new character to see if I want to fit them in my ranked team composition. Mainly for DP battles because that's what I main, but you know what I mean. Even in singles, if you're trying out a new character, you can come over here as well. And lastly, welcome to advanced combos. Now, it's going to be really hard to teach advanced combos, especially because every character, like I've been mentioning in this whole video, has a different moveset. Similar inputs, different attacks, yap, I know you're sick of hearing it. So instead, what I'm going to tell you, as you climb further and further higher up the ranks in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, that players will not really try to go for longevity combos. And I know we just spent this whole entire guide explaining how to do longevity combos, but I feel like these will only work in the lower tier ranks. And of course, on your friends who don't decide to take this game seriously as much as you do, because you're here for the guide to get better. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you're wondering how players pull off those really long combo chains, it's because they have been playing for a long time, and they most likely mastered a Z counter or a super counter, which is the best counter in the game to get out of combos. And when a player is that confident, they are basically able to put you in a longevity term combo, knowing that if you get out, that they can get out of anything that you have to throw at them as well. And also, when you are versing a good opponent, they can kind of scale how good your defense is by doing combos on you. If they're able to just completely abuse you and put you in longer combos than normal, they're just gonna have a field day on your back end. So instead of giving you longevity combos that will last for like a 37 to 50 hit duration, I'm gonna be giving you some techniques to actually trip up your good opponents. Literally no pun intended, because what I'm gonna say is make sure you abuse grand slashes. We went over grand slashes in the intermediate part of this guide, but they will really trip up your opponent, and like I said, no pun intended. As a matter of fact, you should always be abusing your smash hits. Not only will they stun your opponent, but they will also throw them completely off guard. In a grand slash, for example, if an enemy is blocking high guard, you could just swipe their feet and then basically it breaks their guard and then they're left stumbled. And if you really want to, smash hits is a really good way to start your combos off. Once you stun an opponent with a smash hit, you can take those combos we learned in the beginner section and the intermediate section of this video and start to utilize them. Whether you want to keep the duration short or long, it's really up to you. Also, if you notice, I am mainly going for the continuous strikes when I am behind my opponent. And the reason why you always want to be behind your opponent when you're striking them is because the combos will always be true. They are impossible to guard when they have your back turned to you. Unless, of course, they get away with hitting a super counter or a Z counter, which is very hard to pull off once you are behind them. When you are versing a good player, it is very important to use your defense as well as your offense. And you know what they say, good defense makes a better offense, or at least I think that's how the saying goes. Anyways, if you are a player that's struggling with defending yourself and defending from getting back shots, I did just drop a defensive guide on how to do counters and evade better so that way you can stop those back shots. The link will be in the description below. Now, the reason why I do mention your defense is because sometimes you can't pull off combos right because your offense is good but your defense sucks. That is just something to keep in mind. Now, I got two more bonus techniques that I'm going to be teaching you so that way you can make your offense a little bit better when it comes to your combos. I know this is the advanced part of the guide, but you're absolutely going to need to know how to dragon dash if you do not know how to. Dragon dashing is very important so that we can get aggressive with your opponent and chase down your opponent when they have their back against the wall. Now, what you want to do to dragon Dragon Dash, you want to hold the button that helps you charge up and then click your dash button twice. For me, it's going to be LT and A 2 times, but for you guys who are on PlayStation and have different binds, it will be your charge up and your dash button twice. And as for the second technique, I'm going to teach you how to dash and strike your opponent at the same time. This is a very useful thing to do because if you are dashing and you are close to your opponent, you can actually hit them at the same time and catch them completely off guard. Now, the way you do this is you charge your key, hit dash, and flick up on the analog stick at the same time. Then right after you hit the attack button, you could also hold it down if you want. Then you'll be able to attack while doing a dragon dash. Well, that is all I have for today's video, guys. If you guys did enjoy the video and you did learn something new, please smash the subscribe button down below so you can find your way back to my channel. Comment your thoughts and your feedback. I would love to hear it. And also join the community Discord pinned in the comment section down below. Peace out, guys. See you in the next one.